Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
Here we go. We're starting. We're podcasting. Hey, everyone. What's the banter topic today, Satya?
Well, you had quite an exciting weekend.
I
Tell
did.
us about that.
Sure. Yeah. It's not. That's less banter. Me just monologuing. But yes.
I can tell you about my weekend too.
I'd love to hear. Let's start there, and then I'll jump into a quick digest.
I saw our former videographer Geeta. She's in town. So
Oh, hey.
yeah, we saw a movie and then had a nice coffee catch up and ran into Mandy. So
Rad.
yeah, it was fun.
Is she still in town or is she out?
She's leaving right now. She's on a plane right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, she says hello and she hopes you're doing good.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, pass that along too. Shout out to Geeta. Awesome. That would have been cool to get everyone together here at the gym, but
I invited her over, but yeah, she wasn't sure.
yeah. Cool. Well, I'll definitely be asking you more about that soon. And then, yeah, my weekend I went to Disneyland with the kids and my wife, and we were there with some of our friends, one of my daughter's closest preschool buddies. And it was as magical as the Magic Kingdom can really deliver. Yeah. Absolutely super cool. I mean, as a first timer, really, I haven't been to Disneyland since I was I went when I was 6 or 7 or 10
same.
or something like that. I also went in grad night at high school.
Yeah.
They bussed us all down there, but I'm not a 24-hour kind of overnight kind of person. So when we arrived at 11 or 10:30 and I was already ready for bed and I was with all my friends and we had to stay up all night and ride rides, I was just a zombie.
Nightmare.
So I don't even remember anything, but
Sure.
this was awesome.
Different.
Yeah. And yeah, the kids had a blast. They were dressed up in their little princess outfits all weekend, which apparently is what the little girls and boys are doing these days down there. And yeah, there was just lots of magic. And most magical moment was the fireworks show that happens at night at Disneyland is spectacular. There's also these shows that they put on, these light shows and things like that. So we're walking down Main Street, which is the main entry of Disneyland, where it's just pretty, it's overwhelming of how much stuff they want you to buy on that street. But the fireworks show is going off. You can see it. The street is packed, thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. They're blasting, the finale is happening. Elsa is just belting out the Frozen lyrics, the Frozen soundtrack. It's loud. And then we're walking and the kids are oh my God. And then boom, they start shooting off fake snow from the top and it's just snowing. And it was I was this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Wow. And the girls were super, super pumped and, we stayed up until 11, which is crazy late for us. But anyway, shout out to all you parents that are making it happen at Disneyland with your kids. It is a full-on event, endurance. I think I logged 25,000 steps the first day, and then
had to get an Instacart delivery.
Yeah, got an the first day was a mess. The food was so bad. We're with these friends of ours who are not on the same health kick as we are, and they're hey, we could go here for dinner. It's a great place to grab dinner. And we show up, and I'm shit, there's nothing to eat here. That I'm not pumped about this. But and then Star Wars as a themed portion of the park was incredible. As a Star Wars fan of my childhood, I was whoa, I am in the movie.
Yeah,
it was rad.
So you're in the movie on a roller coaster kind of thing?
You're in the roller coaster is you're in the movie.
You're flying through space. You're
flying through space on a transport. You walk into rooms where there are Imperial stormtroopers lined up hundreds of them. You're what the these are actual actors. It was there was this waiting, instead of being hey, wait over here for your next ride. It's somebody working who's prisoner, stand on the orange, and they're in character. And I was laughing. They're looking at me no, this is not, we're not fucking around, right? It was really cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And so then we were going to get on a plane, come home, and my daughter slipped and fell and got a 2-inch gash on her forehead.
Nightmare.
We had to go to the emergency room, get stitches. It was a total nightmare. And so that was the end of our trip. So
okay. But you made it back.
And watch out for that Orange County Airport.
Yeah.
The marble steps on
Yeah.
the way past TSA. So yeah, that was what got crazy. But anyhow, okay.
Okay.
If you guys are still with us, we are now podcasting for real. There'll be a timestamp. You can go right to the beginning of when we're actually talking about fitness. Today, we're going to talk about what are the hardest things that people will encounter getting started with functional bodybuilding training.
Yeah.
Whether you're working with individual coach or you're doing Persist, or maybe you download one of our ebooks. What are the challenges you're going to face? Now, some of these are going to be specific to us. Some will be general challenges to starting any program. But we got some great suggestions from Nate. Satya brought some good suggestions as well. We've heard from many of you over the years what your challenges and obstacles are getting started. So let's dive into some of them and let's just pick it apart.
Okay, great. Well, I think one important thing to consider with functional bodybuilding, especially now post-pandemic, is that we're an online training program. Whether you're working with a coach or you're in Persist or doing one of our ebooks, you don't have someone with you in the room. And so I think that can present a certain amount of challenge for different people who might not feel comfortable reading a workout or knowing how to watch a video and replicate that movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people, they're still going to be in a room with other people doing workouts, and there might be coaches around them. But if you're taking one of our programs and you're bringing it into a different space, then this absolutely applies. A lot of you are listening or working out in your garages, or you're taking your program and going to a commercial gym that doesn't have group classes, isn't necessarily designed for functional bodybuilding, but you're making it work because there's, equipment that allows you to do the workouts. And I think this is also just, again, another just shift that's happening in the fitness culture where there's a lot of options, for training online. I really like the way that Stu put it last week. He was using the I think it was either in a personal conversation we were having over dinner or on the podcast, but he was like talking about it just like the microbrew, culture that has grown like in the last decade. Once upon a time, people were like, well, these are the 5 beers that I'm going to select from and just give me that. And now there's like thousands and thousands of microbreweries, and the consumers know so much more about what they want from their beer.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening with online training. It's like our consumers are educated. Like in 2010, I was like, hey guys, we're doing, power cleans, and then we're going to do this Metcon. Like, sure, cool, whatever. And now 12 years later, like, well, I don't really want to, I like power cleans, but I don't really want to do it this way. I kind of like it this way. And, I'm not into like the high intensity. I want to do this kind of Metcon. And like our consumers know so much more. So there's a lot more programs and a lot more options that are being presented to accommodate for different interests and what people want, because if you're not interested in what you're doing, you're not going to get the workout done. And it's more important to be like really interested in the training so that improves your consistency and your long-term buy-in. Did you have a thought to that?
Yeah, well, I think that's true. And I think that there is also a section of people who just is not quite sure what they want. And they might just get attracted to a program because they like the vibe of it, or they like you and follow you on social media, or they just want to check it out and they're not entirely sure what to expect. Completely.
And, we could keep going with the analogy, but it's like also somebody who's like, yeah, I don't really know what I want, but I walk into the store and there's 50 microbrews that are up there. Like, I don't know which one to pick. I'm going to pick the one that's got the pretty, label on it, whatever, and they taste it.
I think I heard of that one before.
Like, oh, this is kind of hard to get into. This is really, it's got some weird funkiness to it, so that's, we're just in a situation where there's a lot of options. And so
certainly
as you start to like take that option and then go and try and investigate it on your own, you might run into some things that feel good and some things that feel hard. And yeah, there's probably, there's going to be a continued effort to create like, starter guides for fitness, right? So that somebody can learn and be like, okay, this is how you approach fitness when you're on your own and you don't have a personal trainer, you don't have a coach sitting next to you, you're not taking the group class. somebody who used to explain to you, like, this is what you do with the movement. This is how you, like, you could kind of just show up and just turn your brain off. And I think people will continue to want to like accumulate more knowledge, become a little bit more aware of how to train so that they have now access to all these different, I mean, that's kind of what we've discussed is like, this would be the best way that functional bodybuilding could be an education system, is to teach people like, how do you train? Like, I'm here to teach you generally how to train. You could take this knowledge from our course and you could go apply it to any training program that's out there, because we need to learn how to train and how to approach training so that we can do this more independently and have more autonomy in our, the way that we exercise and move our bodies for life, regardless of what the training program specifically that we choose.
Right. And so I think one thing that can be difficult is if somebody doesn't really have a framework to work from in evaluating a training program or knowing a little bit about what different options can provide that person, it can be hard to assess whether any training program, whether ours or another, is really a good match for that person.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So let's get back to the original question, which was...
Yeah. So I think that for people who are getting started with functional bodybuilding, there can be a little bit of a doubt when people first get started with, let's say, persist, because when you're working with a coach, you can actually have a conversation with that person and they tailor the programming to you and are checking in with you very frequently to make sure it's aligning with your expectations. But when you sign up for persist, you may have a certain expectation or an idea of what it's about and you're not sure. And then we have 4 tracks to choose from. And so I think that one of the things that can be difficult is picking a track that is like going to be the perfect track for you. Like, what is going to get me the result that I'm like secretly really hoping for, or the thing that really drew me to this program. And I would just inject one opinion of my own into this, which is that it doesn't matter as much at that stage. Like, all of our tracks will help you look good and move well. And so if that's why you were attracted to functional bodybuilding, there's not a wrong choice. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yes, I would agree. And here's how I think about it. Because I've done all the training tracks at some period of time for varying lengths of 3 to 18 weeks in a row. And what I know is that what makes a training track work is your consistency with it, and your ability to bring a large amount of effort safely to it. There's plenty of things that can impact how consistent you're going to be and your ability to bring effort safely. But those would be the things that when selecting, you want to try and optimize for. And this is where what we provide in like the onboarding, or like give you kind of guidance to select. I think it's important to really listen to like kind of how we break this down. It's like, if you have equipment limitations, then choose the minimalist track. That's the only way that you're going to be able to perform the workouts as closely and really follow a system of training and do it, effectively and consistently. If you're new to functional bodybuilding principles, and if you're really looking to build like your first solid training plan, then Pillars is the way to go. Pillars is the essence of functional bodybuilding. And over now 6-7 months of having that track available, it has gotten very streamlined and consistent. Like, this gets you definitely done within 60 minutes, if not less. So you're looking at 50 minutes from start to finish to get a great workout, and that's kind of comprehensive and covers a wide range of different things that we do. It's never so overwhelming on any given day that you like, the training formats are simple and easy to kind of get into. And if you build a little bit of familiarity in the first couple weeks, then you can bring a lot of intensity to that. Like, my wife, who's been training for over a decade with me now, just me alone, I've been her coach or working with her in some capacity. When she's by herself and she needs to jump into a workout, she does pillars, and it's like every time she does, she's like, man, I'm sore from that. Like, wow, that was that was hard. I pushed it on that. And I'm like, here's somebody who's been training for a decade who's still getting a huge benefit from we'll call it our foundations, or our kind of, welcome to functional bodybuilding program. If you're somebody who's more familiar with training and you really are drawn to more hypertrophy, muscle building, aesthetics training, then pump is the way to go, and just focus in that department. That is functional bodybuilding with a bodybuilding emphasis to it. If you come from a CrossFit background and you're looking to just get your body feeling a little bit better, and you maybe are burned out and you really love the idea of continuing to do CrossFit, but with that FBB, through the FBB lens, then Perform is the track to choose. So that's the guidance to like selecting your track. And I think it's important to just pick one and stick to it for a minimum of like 2 to 4 weeks before you decide to shift. Mm-hmm. Because if you're like, I did it a couple days and now I want to switch to a new track, and then I did that a couple days, I want to switch to a new work. It's like you have not given yourself any chance of really feeling, what is this doing for me? So, I mean, I used to say, don't do anything for less than 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now I've like made that a little bit more reasonable. It's like, okay, 2 to 4 weeks of actually like hitting every, aspect of the training program from start to finish for that whole time to make a determination, maybe I should try a different approach.
Yeah. And especially because all of our training is progressive. So you're going to return to similar movements, not the exact same workout, but very similar movements week after week. And so you're going to start to see how the training is building and working in your body.
Yeah.
If you give it a little time.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I also want to bring in a mindset piece, because I think that this applies to any program that you're going to take on your own, especially, which is something that we refer to as being a thinking athlete. But I think that there can be a little bit of a misconception around the thinking athlete being someone who's already an expert, who already has learned a lot about training and really solidified the knowledge in themselves. And I think of a thinking athlete as, what is your willingness to learn and not get everything perfectly right off the bat? What is your willingness to try some experiments that might not work out the way that you wanted? Whether that's choosing a load and after the workout, you're like, you know what, that was too light, or I bit off way more than I could chew, and you have that feeling of a little bit of an uncomfortable, even failure perhaps within a workout. What's your willingness to be like, okay, I'm going to learn from that and adjust things the next time, or I'm going to, not quite be sure how to execute this movement or this workout, and I'm just going to try and maybe ask some questions and put myself in a place where it's a little bit vulnerable to learn something, rather than coming in and feeling like, I'm only interested in this workout if I'm 100% certain that it's going to give me what I want and I'm 100% certain how to execute.
Yeah. Well, and this kind of connects to what I was thinking about as well, which is, in some ways, I feel like it's almost misguided to be like, come into a program and be like, this is what I want for my body. Like, if you're searching for a new way of training, then something has not been working in what you've done in the past. And if it hasn't been working, and if you haven't found a rhythm and a groove in your training, then it's hard to like take the next step and be like, this is what I want specifically. This is the specific goal that I want to accomplish. So I'm sorry I'll break this down even further. I would say the vast majority of people arriving at functional bodybuilding are people that don't have a consistent like routine for training. They're like, they're missing workouts. They are inconsistent with, their diet. They, they're great from Monday to Thursday, but then from Friday to Sunday, things kind of fall apart. And then the whole cycle just kind of snowballs from there, and they haven't found what they want. They maybe are deciding like, I want to, they say like, I want to lose weight, or I want to build muscle, or I want to get stronger. But really the first goal should be like, I want to follow something for a month and, just be consistent.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, should be the goal coming into the program. And that's like the mind shift, the mentality shift of like, I'm showing up to functional bodybuilding and I just want to start checking boxes and collecting wins. And I'm going to err on the side of doing less weight. I'm going to, if it says, 8 to 10 reps, I'm only going to do 8, I'm just going to err on the side of doing a less. And at the end of the workout, be like, hey, I maybe could have gone a little harder, but that was exactly what I needed for today. Mm-hmm. I needed to win. I needed to check that box. And then tomorrow, maybe I'll push it again.
Yeah.
And when you get to week 4, or like make it a goal, like I got to get to week 4 of this, of doing that, I promise you that at week 2, if you've strung together 2 weeks of being consistent, not only are you going to feel freaking amazing, you're going to be like so high on just like, dude, I'm winning, that you're going to actually be able to be like, oh, I like this part of training. This is what I want to focus on. I want to build some muscle, or I really like this portion of training. I really want to focus on building my endurance, right? Then you can start to get, the further you get along, the more granular you can get with like what you want to accomplish, and then start using all the information and education we put out to make those tweaks to like refine it. Mm-hmm. And that is like coming from somebody who has made so many round trips through like, know what I want, get really granular, really push towards goals, really get refined, get super focused, and then hit the goal and then lose track and be like, oh, I'm just kind of bouncing around and I got to start again. And every time I go around this loop of like, I know what I want, I have focus goals, I'm hitting it perfectly, I achieve my goal, and now I'm like, I don't know what to do, I'm kind of losing it, I'm bouncing around, I'm a little inconsistent. I always come back to like, I just got to put in 2 to 4 weeks of like not missing a workout, following a plan, sticking to something simple. And then by week 2 or 3 or 4, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to be doing right now. This is what I'm focused on. Mm-hmm. And it works every time. But if you like, cool, I'm signing up because I want to shred 15 pounds and I'm going to get on the macro calculator and I'm going to start hitting this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to like try, and you don't even have a foundation of consistency to like start that from. Mm-hmm. You're in trouble. Yeah. You're in trouble.
Because the learning is from the doing, not the thinking about it.
Exactly. That's so, wow. I wish I could have just started with saying that. The learning is from the doing, not thinking about it.
Well, and I also resonate so much with that 2-week time period, because every time that I've had a setback, an injury or an illness, and I've fallen off of my consistency, it feels like it's almost insurmountable to be back where I was. And then I always tell myself, look, in 2 weeks, if I just show up, it's going to feel completely different. And it always does.
Always does.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Which, as we're saying this and I'm feeling like so connected to this message, I'm like, what's the 2-week functional bodybuilding, like, crash course? Like, welcome to our world. We're going to get you 2 weeks of just win every single day. You can't miss. Like, just do this. Yeah.
It's funny as we're talking, and this is a bit of a detour to our conversation, but we've been talking a lot about improving the product and retention and all those things. And I'm like, how can we just tunnel focus people to eliminate any potential decision that they might have to make? And it's just be like, here, welcome. Here's what you do.
Yeah.
Go crush it.
Totally.
Like, we're going to take all the decisions off the table just to get you some wins. And then you're going to know what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is also the power of like the 30-day challenge.
Yeah.
It's not, and let me just make a clear distinction. 30-day challenge that says, hey, you're going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. We're going to do this thing that's crazy hard. And like, the 5% of people that finish it look amazing.
Yeah.
The 95% that didn't even turn in day one of like, results, they just dropped the check and they didn't actually finish.
And they feel like shit about it.
Yeah. Well, they're probably numb to feeling like shit because this is the 50th time that they've not followed through, and they're just like, it's whatever. It's, just another thing.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's more room to feel like shit in that scenario for those 95% of people. But if we did a challenge that was like, hey, like, let's focus. What's the goal of this challenge? The goal of this challenge is to just, it's like the practical protein challenge that we did, which had the idea of like, what's the one thing? What's the one lever that you're going to pull in your nutrition? We're going to make it as like, we're going to give you as much support as we can in getting there. And that is hit your body weight in grams of protein every day.
Yeah.
Or, 0.85 of that for some people. And that was it. Like, don't count macros, don't count anything else. Don't
worry about intermittent fasting.
Don't worry about your carbs. Forget carnivore, forget keto, vegan, like however you want to do it. It's just, if you get the protein in, and there's like that, an energy that goes into accomplishing that. At 30 days, if you've done the one lever pull thing, you're like, dude, I feel good and I want to do the next thing. I want to do the next thing. Like, then you start to build momentum.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a path to that from a training perspective with FBB for sure.
Well, let's dig in a little bit also, because some of the resistance in starting our training program, you're going to find a lot of resistance in many places. I think a lot of people get a little tripped up on learning the framework of functional bodybuilding, because our workout it's likely it's not looking like any workout that you've ever really done before if you haven't tried anything that we've put out on social media or anything like that. So we've got tempo, we've got rep schemes, we've got timed rest, we've got different structures of conditioning workouts. So within the framework of functional bodybuilding, what are your thoughts on how someone could approach that with the maximum amount of success and the least amount of obstacles and resistance in either how they think about it or how they actually implement the training to just get a win? Yeah.
Well, it's hard to, it's very difficult for me to generalize, because I know everyone comes in with a slightly different amount of like knowledge around training and reading workouts. But at the end of the day, like, our workouts might in places be like unfamiliar and look a little intimidating, in just the way that they're written. But, the exercises are often well known, or we do a good job of documenting how to do them, how to break down the exercise if it's a challenging one. And so getting the movements done for the repetitions that are asked of you, that's number one. Just do the movements and do the reps. Tempo, rest periods, some of the other like subtle training, like EMOMs and every 90 seconds, and the way the workouts are formatted, those things matter, and they add a layer of repeatability and control to the workouts. So like, if you are going to go through a training program, eventually a concept of progressive overload becomes important, so that you continue to see progress and you continue to feel like you're challenged, and you don't just aren't just doing movement for no reason,
sleepwalking through it.
Exactly. Yeah. And this idea of like progressive overload, like, which is simply do more than last time. Well, we put in workout training formats to make sure that what you did today, you can actually compare to next week and the week after and the week after, to know, hey, I'm getting a little stronger, or I'm going a little harder, or I'm doing a few more reps, or I'm lifting a little bit more weight. But at first, that doesn't matter. Like, if you're just starting something, if it's a new training system and a new training style, you kind of have beginner gains, whether you've been training for a while or not. Like, and beginner gains are like, you start something new, your body is not used to this training system, and so most combinations of exercises, the way they're put together, will be a new stimulus, and you will start to see some, physical changes. Furthermore, based upon what we said before, if you're starting and you don't have any consistent training going on already, then you're just getting back into training or you're restarting. And this is, you have that opportunity to just get those beginner gains right away without doing too much complicated stuff.
Yeah.
So again, the movements, executing them for the repetitions that were asked for, just moving well, like get your technique and your movements good. And that's it. And that's like as simple a way to collect those first quick wins. And if in week 2 or 3 or 4, you're like, okay, I'm going to start focusing on this tempo thing, then great. You start focusing on tempo. And I think that's going to add a ton of value. And you're going to see, wow, when I utilize tempo correctly, I get to train hard and safely, more safely. If you start to then time your rest periods better, you're like, oh, now you're in week 6, week 8. You're like, I'm timing the rest periods. Holy smokes, this really makes it a whole different feel. This adds to the collective, like, compounding effect of not only strength, but aerobic work in my training. Wow, I'm really feeling a different, you just leveled up another layer of thinking athlete and knowing how to approach training.
Yeah.
So it's not essential that you do it all at the beginning to start.
How much do you think ego matters in having success with a training program? Because one thing that I've heard is that when people start using tempo, they are shocked by how much they need to strip the bar in order to have an effective set. And similarly with pacing, it can be, I think, surprising for people in being used to go all out that that's not quite the effective mode with FBB, and you may have to start out really slow to have an effective pacing session and a conditioning piece.
Yeah.
So what is a way to, or how do you think about that factor in people coming into functional bodybuilding and rethinking the traditional types of mechanisms where we may have been used to leaving a workout feeling like, oh yeah, I crushed that?
Well, I think that I think ego can stand in the way of somebody being successful long-term in a program. As I think about it now, I don't think that having a big ego will keep you from getting an early win. I think what it'll do is it'll make you not follow the training like prescription super accurately. Mm-hmm. You'll see like the tempo and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to try that thing. But like you're attached to certain numbers and you're like, I'm back squatting 350 today, like whether it says 40XO tempo or not. Like, and so you'll just sort of convince yourself that you're following the program and that you're hitting your numbers. And the reason many of these things are inside of the FBB programming is to allow somebody to really do this a long time.
Yeah.
Tempo training, it has, certainly if you're an intermediate advanced lifter, if you use it accurately, you can enhance certain workout results. But one of the big reasons we use it is to control movement quality and keep people, basically working at less than their absolute maximums in terms of weight and still seeing favorable results. So by adding in tempo and changing rep ranges, like we can keep you keep staying strong, even building muscle at 70% of your max weights, which is great because like 70% of my max weight, I almost always move that with really good form. Like I never get to a point where I'm like, oh, I had really crappy form with the 50-pound dumbbells on the bench press. Like, no, crappy form comes in when I'm trying to like muster the strength to do the 100-pound dumbbells. So if that person with the ego keeps at it for too long and they don't shed some of that ego and adopt some of the training principles, then they're going to run into the obstacle of like injury and kind of, overtrain or overload or burnout down the road. Mm-hmm. And that's what those things are there for. Similarly with like conditioning, it's like you can go balls to the walls on like a conditioning workout and get your bell rung and feel like, damn, I got a great workout from that.
Yeah.
You know, can you do that for the next 365 days?
Right.
Probably not. You know, some people can, and they are going and competing in CrossFit as a sport. Like, that's what they love to do.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to do that. So at some point you're going to need to like learn, you know, hey, this is how you can apply the FBB principles to do this, you know, more effectively for a long time.
Yeah.
It's funny that we're bringing this up because, like, you know, our friend Ryan, who started, you know, FBB training several years ago, he just posted that he had his 1,000th, you know, FBB workout.
His girlfriend too.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And, you know, his like throwback to like day one was like the first couple, you know, workouts were like this super humbling experience. Like, here was a guy who came in who had a bit of an ego. It's like, I've been bodybuilding for over a decade. Like, I'm jacked, like I can do stuff. And it was like, you know, week one, his shoulders were like were super in pain, like discomfort, because he had like never done any overhead pressing before. And we probably had overhead squats, and he was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? And like over time, it's like he has come to like learn and speak and preach the methodology and the message of FBB. And it's like, now he's 40 years old and, you know, two plus decades of training experience behind him, and he moves better than he ever has. He feels really good, like, and he's just continuing to accumulate these wins. And like, it took time to like, you know, shed some of that old way of approaching training and being like, okay, this is my new way of approaching training. Did he still get his first, like, you know, 20 workouts in, despite like coming in with like, hey, I'm, you know, he got it in.
Yeah.
But it was humbling, you know, and then as he progressed, now he's at 1,000 workouts and, you know, no sign of stopping, which is like, that's where we're, you know, God, would it be cool if everybody hit their 1,000th workout and like within a, you know, it's been probably a 4-year time period. So, you know, there's 1,500 days working out 2 out of every 3 days. I mean, I know he moves more than that, but you know, that's a pretty great track record to not see results like, and he saw results like anybody would if they were on that level of consistency.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what is your brief advice for someone who would be starting a functional bodybuilding program, or perhaps any training program, and knowing what hard things they're going to encounter? What would be your pep talk?
My pep talk is, it's more important that you do the work than how hard, how perfectly, how, you know, elegantly you do it. So choose the path that creates the least resistance to you just getting the work done. If it means skipping a section of training, skip it. Do the rest of it. If it means not paying attention to the extra details, don't pay attention to the extra details. Just do the exercises. Complete the reps and the sets for the day and move on. Aim for that 2-week mark of just saying, you know, if there's 8 workouts in your True Coach account for the first 2 weeks, hit all 8. Find a way to get all 8, no matter what it looks like, how sloppy or how perfect or how much energy, or if you had the perfect workout nutrition, or if you had the right workout, post-workout meal, or it doesn't matter. Just get them done. You will feel tremendously better, and you will start to get clarity on how you want to really approach these things. And let one new thing unfold in your, you know, commitment to training every couple weeks. And by the time you make it through your first, possibly second training cycle with a coach or with Persist, you will be so clear about, you know, what this is going to do for you and how it's going to feel. And you'll have already become a thinking athlete without even knowing it. You'd be like, wow, I know so much more about training in 6 weeks than I ever thought possible, just by showing up and getting the workouts done. It teaches you by doing, not by just thinking about it and talking about it.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll add one more thing to that, which is ask questions, whether that's the coach that we have on the other end of your account in Persist, or the Facebook group, or the owner of the program, or on social media, or looking up answers on the internet. But being curious about the things that you're not sure of will just help get you further faster, I believe.
For sure. Yeah. And that's, your questions have likely been answered before, and we are ready and very excited to, help engage you and direct you into the right resources, because we have them. So just ask away.
Absolutely.
Ask away. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
See ya.